Welcome to another episode of WWE This or That, the series where I give you 15 different questions with 2 separate answers for you to pick from. We'll look at the results of the questions based on what you've selected, and I'll give you my opinions of what answer I would have gone with. By the way, I'm traveling, so this is why you've probably seen me with this shirt and this exact same look over the last couple of days. And as always, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, ring the bell for notifications. If you're a wrestling fan, I know you're gonna fall in love with his YouTube channel because we always upload daily wrestling content. All right, let's look at your answers. Let's start off with the first poll that asks, what is the better show right now, Monday Night Raw or Friday Night SmackDown? And with 17,000 votes, you have unanimously said that Monday Night Raw is still the better of the 2 shows. And I'm not gonna lie, I thought that this would be reversed. I thought that you would all fall to recency bias because of the fantastic episode of Friday Night SmackDown that we just saw as the inaugural episode of SmackDown on the USA Network. On top of that, the outlook of SmackDown looks great. Meanwhile, the outlook of Monday Night Raw, which is coming down to 2 hours, doesn't look fantastic on the other hand. But the fundamental truth is that for all of 2024, with perhaps maybe a few episodes leading into WrestleMania 40, Monday Night Raw has just been the better of the 2 shows. It's been the most consistently good. It's had the best storylines, the best segments, the best matches. It's been better than SmackDown for the most part. But I won't lie, I do believe that the overall future outlook of SmackDown, at the very least for the near future, as Raw waits to go to Netflix, does look better on Friday Night SmackDown at the moment. But I would still personally vote for Monday Night Raw because I do think that it's been the better show, and it's still, as of the making of this video, in my opinion, the better show. Who would be a better inaugural women's mid-card champion, Chelsea Green or Michin? Nearly 10,000 of you voted on here, and the majority of you went with Chelsea Green. And in my opinion, these 2 are the 1-2 that should be in contention for the women's mid-card championship. I know that I've already beat it like a dead horse on this channel, but I still believe that Michin is fantastic, underrated, and one of the best improved wrestlers in the WWE in 2024. She would be on my list of most improved superstars of the year. It's funny because I talk so much about her in a positive manner that now there are some people that watch my videos that believe that she's overrated. I promise you, not a lot of people are talking about Michin. You just hear me yap a lot about her, which makes you maybe believe that everyone is, but I promise you, she's still underrated. But I'm okay with either of these 2 being mid-card champions because I want whoever is the first women's mid-card champion to be the workhorse of the women's division, defending this championship and having storylines and feuds across Raw, SmackDown, and even NXT. And when I look at the landscape of women's wrestling, Michin and Chelsea Green are the 2 that are consistently working between SmackDown and NXT, having great storylines and great matches. Over the last year, Michin has been having the better matches than Chelsea Green, but Chelsea Green is a significantly better character worker in my opinion. On top of that, if you just watch Chelsea Green versus Julia down in NXT, you know that WWE has not anywhere near come close to tapping the potential of Chelsea Green's in-ring prowess. She is actually fantastic. Go watch that match with Julia, and if you're still not convinced, then go watch her work in Lucha Underground, which is mesmerizing. I would personally vote for Michin, but I'm okay with either of these 2, honestly. Toss a coin. What match was better, Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker WrestleMania 25 or Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker WrestleMania 26? And with 9,000 of you voting in this poll, about 58% of you have said that the WrestleMania 25 match is the better of the 2, and I am inclined to agree. I think that fundamentally as a match, it's far more special what they did at WrestleMania 25 because it didn't necessarily come out of nowhere. You knew The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels were going to put on a fantastic match, but it really was just a match to determine who is the best out of these 2 legends. There were no stakes necessarily involved, but just the fact that it's Shawn Michaels, Mr. WrestleMania, going after the streak was enough to absolutely engross the world. And then you tack on a legendary 5-star match, you have everything that you need in order to have one of the WrestleMania 26, on the other hand, was still a fantastic match. Not as good in ring, in my opinion, as WrestleMania 25. On top of that, it just had significantly far more expectations because we already knew what these 2 could potentially do in the ring. But the WrestleMania 26 match did have higher stakes, which I oddly enough believe actually watered down the importance of this match more than the WrestleMania 25 match in terms of getting me engrossed in terms of storytelling happening in the moment. Because yes, career versus streak, huge stakes involved, but those are stakes that were really manufactured as part of the storyline. Meanwhile, the stakes that were involved in the WrestleMania 25 match were just ego, and it's just something that I think viscerally as a wrestling fan you can more easily get behind. So I would also vote WrestleMania 25. But don't get me wrong, the WrestleMania 26 match, weirdly highly underrated. It's still fucking fantastic. No. Oh,
I remember this spot.
Oh my god.
Can you imagine?
The making of a superstar right here.
Oh yeah, dude. It's
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Is this
oh.
That, folks, was a sneak peek of this week's Wrestling is Cool Match Club, which is available exclusively on patreon.com/SantiZap. This week, we'll be doing a watch-along of the WrestleMania 32 Intercontinental Championship ladder match. The greatest squash match of all time, Shawn Michaels versus Vince McMahon in a street fight at WrestleMania 22. Bianca Belair versus Sasha Banks at WrestleMania 37. The Boneyard match between AJ Styles and The Undertaker at WrestleMania 36. And one of the greatest matches of all time, Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Bret the Hitman Hart at WrestleMania 13. It's a little WrestleMania week this time. You can find these alongside the Raw review, SmackDown reviews, and the Wrestling is Cool podcast 3 days early all over on the Patreon. Once again, that's patreon.com/SantiZap. Come on over, give it a shot for 1 month. I think that you're really gonna like the offerings there. Just give it a shot, but back to the video. Who would you prefer for John Cena to feud with next year? CM Punk or Drew McIntyre? 10,500 of you voted on this list, and by far the majority went with CM Punk. And frankly, I can't blame you that you went with CM Punk because we know the history of CM Punk and John Cena. They've told great stories. I think that at some point I would love to see CM Punk and John Cena come to blows during John Cena's retirement tour, considering CM Punk is one of his greatest rivals of all time. However, we've already seen it. Drew McIntyre versus John Cena, to me, is the more appetizing of the two, as John Cena calls it a career, because this is far and away the best Drew McIntyre ever. The best he has ever been in terms of matches, character work, his promos. He could stand toe-to-toe with Cena, and it would be something that we haven't seen before. So I would personally actually vote for Drew McIntyre here, mostly because I've seen the Punk stuff. I wouldn't hate seeing it again, don't get me wrong, but I'm really intrigued as to how current day 2024 bitter piece of shit douchebag Drew McIntyre would fare in a storyline with John Cena. I would really love to see that. What's the better type of music for WWE show openings? Rap and R&B or divorced angry dad rock? So the majority of you went with divorced angry dad rock, and weirdly enough, I'm inclined to agree. It's not that I think that rap has no place in the world of professional wrestling. I mean, look at the shirt that I'm wearing. This guy literally made his name off of hip hop culture in the Ruthless Aggression era. I love rap. I love listening to rap more than I love listening to rock. But there's just something about a rock music, that angry divorced dad that's like, all right, kids are not here. Kids are with the mom. So I'm just going to sit back and watch Monday Night Raw. That type of music just sort of hits better with these openings, in my opinion. Again, I prefer rap and R&B as a music genre for me to personally listen to, but I weirdly think that divorced angry dad rock fits wrestling better. Who was the better rival to John Cena, Randy Orton or Edge? I thought this was going to be significantly closer than it was, because with nearly 11,000 people voting, Randy Orton blew Edge out of the water. And I'm very curious if this is fans of Randy Orton, because I think that Randy Orton just has way more fans than Edge, because when I look back at John Cena's career, obviously these two are guys that were perennially feuding and battling with John Cena throughout the 2000s and Randy Orton in the 2010s with Cena. The Randy Orton feud went for longer, But the better storylines and the better matches were John Cena and Edge, in my opinion. Like, Randy and Cena had some pretty decent matches, but I can't name like one particular like banger that Cena and Randy Orton actually had. Meanwhile, I could name you a couple with Edge. Unforgiven, TLC, still just such an amazing match between John Cena and Edge. I'm gonna personally go with Edge. The storyline of Edge and John Cena, with Edge cashing in the Money in the Bank briefcase, the stuff with Lita, the rated R superstar, the Edge crashing one night stand, that like year and a half John Cena versus Edge feud blows anything that John Cena and Randy Orton did out of the water, albeit Randy Orton is still a legendary John Cena nemesis, and they had some good storylines and good matches. And although Edge didn't have as long a rivalry with John Cena, I still think he was the better rival. So I'm going to go with Edge. Who has more aura, the infamous Tangaloa or Ricky? How is this one of the most voted polls, with nearly 13,000 of you voting that the infamous Tangaloa has more aura than Ricky? But Ricky made a fight out of this. This wasn't being blown out of the water. Shout out to Ricky for putting up a fight in this poll. Yeah, I mean, you got to go with the infamous Tangaloa, so long as he's got the eye patch. If he's eye patchless, then I would personally go with Ricky. Look, Ricky has the body hair. He's got the back hair. He's got the shoulder hair, really adding to the overall package and the aura. When you take away the eye patch from Tangaloa, I think that he loses to just the body hair of Ricky alone. I am gonna go Tangaloa with the eye patch. Without the eye patch, your boy would go with Ricky. Who has been the better mid-card champion at the moment, LA Knight or Braun Breaker? In total, 12,000 of you voted that LA Knight is the better mid-card champion at the moment, and frankly, I think that this should be closer to 50-50. I don't really think that we have too much evidence to go any one particular way. I will say it's easy to pick LA Knight in this because he's got such an easy reign to follow up. Following up Logan Paul's reign as United States champion is easier, and because LA Knight just simply being there with the championship elevates the division and actually makes matches that are happening in the mid-card feel like they actually matter, makes LA Knight feel like a really awesome champion, even though he hasn't really had more stories or more defenses than Braun Breaker, at least not very many more. Meanwhile, Braun Breaker is following two solid championship reigns, the reign of Gunther, which of course we know is historic, and the reign of Sami Zayn. These are tough acts to follow up for Braun Breaker. But even though these are tough acts to follow up, I would say he's following up pretty well, and he's becoming a great Intercontinental champion in his own accord. I will say LA Knight, but this is not a runaway, at least not the runaway that this poll is showing. I think that this should be closer to 50-50. What's the better group, the Pure Fusion Collective or Retribution? With 12,500 of you voting, you have unanimously said that Retribution is the better of the two groups. These are the two groups in the WWE that have been kind of memed and clowned for so long for just being not very good. PFC, Pure Fusion Collective, being the current day iteration of the butt of all of these jokes. But don't forget, Retribution was also just not very good, and they never accomplished jack shit. But at the very least, Retribution was an experiment during a difficult time in the WWE, the Thunderdome era, the Performance Center era, so I can forgive WWE a little bit more when it comes to Retribution, but Retribution wasn't very good. Pure Fusion Collective, on the other hand, I feel like is just stealing valuable TV time from good storylines and good matches, because we haven't gotten any of that with the Pure Fusion Collective. So yeah, screw it. I'll go with Retribution as well on this one. Who wins more world titles at the end of their career, Obafemi or Roxanne Perez? With nearly 11,000 of you voting, you voted for Obafemi, but this was pretty close. There were some of you that were confused about the comparison of the two, but really, this is just your interpretation. This doesn't have to be one-to-one orange to oranges comparison here. It's an interesting question because I I do believe that both of these two will be cornerstones of the men's and the women's division. However, I think that Roxanne Perez is going to walk out at the end of her career with more championships than Obafemi. Not because I think that WWE is going to fumble Obafemi or because I think that Roxanne Perez is seen as more valuable than Obafemi, but because we already have evidence that Obafemi doesn't drop titles. He wins a championship and he will hold that shit until the end of time because he is the mountain that you cannot climb. Meanwhile, Roxanne Perez has already won multiple championships, which means that she would have had to lose multiple championships to be in the position that she's in NXT. So I see Roxanne Perez being a perennial main eventer at one point in her career with the main roster, winning, losing championships. Meanwhile, Obafemi, he's gonna win, and then god damn it, good luck to the rest of the roster trying to dethrone that freaking monster. So me personally, because of the context of the question, I think that it's actually gonna be Roxanne Perez. Triple H will be remembered more as a wrestler or WWE executive. With over 10,000 of you voting, most of you did vote that he will be remembered more as a wrestler. And this is a really interesting question because we're so early on in Triple H's time as an executive, but we already have the entirety of Triple H's resume as a wrestler, so it's really difficult to compare the two. The simple answer is that he'll just be remembered for both. Duh, obviously, Hall of Famer as a wrestler, of course, leading multiple Hall of Fame worthy factions in DX and Evolution, and the Authority if you want to throw into that. Like, Triple H has just done so damn much as an in-ring performer. But in the short amount of time that Triple H has been a WWE executive, he has fundamentally moved the needle for the WWE. The product is significantly leaps and bounds by factors of 10 better with Triple H at the helm in an executive position. And as awesome as Triple H was as a wrestler, he was never the absolute needle mover because there were always an Austin and a Rock and a Cena and a Roman Reigns in the picture. But meanwhile, as an executive, he is the driving force for positive change in the WWE. Like, WWE is the best that it's ever been, in my opinion, right now under Triple H. So if we were trying to answer this question right now, the answer is likely wrestler, but let's say is 25 years from now, I think that he's going to be remembered more for the fundamental changes that he brought to the world of professional wrestling as an executive. So I'm actually going to go with that answer. Who is the top face of the WWE? Cody Rhodes or Roman Reigns? With 16,500 of you voting, this is damn near 50-50, with Roman Reigns barely winning at 51.6% of the votes. And this is the question that will just start the biggest flame war in the comments section. This is the question that people will clip out of context on Twitter and TikTok. This is a borderline impossible question to ask and answer because you could really take several approaches as to how you answer it. I think it's really easy to make the argument that Roman Reigns is the face of the WWE because he is the biggest draw when he's there. But you could also make the argument that Cody Rhodes is the face of the WWE because he's the top guy that's always there. Here is what I will say, and maybe this will appease everybody. I think that Roman Reigns is the biggest name in the WWE. I think that he is the biggest draw and the biggest superstar that the WWE has. I don't think that Cody is bigger than Roman in that regard. But I think it's a fair statement to say that Cody Rhodes is the top babyface in the WWE. Maybe even when Roman is there, because Cody is a very clear-cut white bread babyface. Meanwhile, Roman Reigns as a character, if you think about it, hasn't really changed all that much, even though now he's fighting for the forces of good. It's still just a matter of family. And I feel like Roman would be doing the same thing if Solo Sikoa, Jacob Fatu, and the new bloodline were baby faces. Roman would be cutting the exact same promos, doing the exact same things. So I guess what I'm saying is that Roman Reigns is just a Roman Reigns, kind of like Undertaker was an Undertaker. He could be a good guy, bad guy, and have the exact same cadence to his promos in the exact same way that he delivers matches and executes his time on the mic. Meanwhile, if Cody were to turn heel, he would be an entirely different character altogether. I really believe that. So I'm going to say that Roman is the biggest name in professional wrestling, but the top babyface of the WWE is Cody Rhodes. Is that sitting on the fence? Maybe. Whatever. I don't give a fuck. What is the better stipulation, Hell in a Cell or Elimination Chamber? With 11,000 of you voting, the majority of you, but not a huge majority, went with Hell in a Cell as the better stipulation. And this one is really entirely subjective. You could make the argument that Hell in a Cell is better or that Elimination Chamber is better. It's really, what do you like more? I will say that with the buildup of CM Punk and Drew McIntyre as a Hell in a Cell match, it does feel like the aura, the mystique, the evil of Hell in a Cell is back. Something that Elimination Chamber has never really had, because Elimination Chamber has always just sort of been a showcase of multiple wrestlers that don't necessarily all hate each other. They just have to fight one another in order to get to a larger goal. Meanwhile, Hell in a Cell right now with CM Punk and Drew McIntyre feels like an earned place to be for this bitter feud. So Hell in a Cell, when treated in such a manner, I think is the more interesting of the two stipulations, but in the past 12 years, it hasn't really been treated as such. Because in the past 10 years or so, it's really been, hey, it's the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. I guess we need to have Hell in a Cell matches, even though our feud doesn't really warrant a Hell in a Cell match. So if the feud is good, I would go with Hell in a Cell as the better, more entertaining, interesting of the stipulations. But the more consistently good of the two recently has been the Elimination Chamber. So I'm gonna go with Hell in a Cell. I'm gonna go with the majority here, but I feel like there's context that needs to be added. Who should the Wyatt Six haunt next? Dominic Mysterio or Jey Uso? With 11,500 of you voting, the majority of you went with Dominic Mysterio. And Dominic Mysterio is the perfect choice for the Wyatt Six to come after because one, he actually kind of fits their criteria of people that have betrayed and turned their back on family and whatnot. But two, Dominic Mysterio is like legitimately afraid of the occult and the spooky and ghost and poltergeist. There's this show on the WWE network that has Scarlett and Shotzi go to like haunted places. They took Dominic Mysterio and Rhea Ripley to one of them, and Dominic Mysterio was scared shitless. So I can only imagine how entertaining Dominic's reactions would be if he were to now be haunted by the Wyatt Six. I think it would make for an awesome Halloween feud in October. But it's also a really good potential WrestleMania feud for both. So I don't know if I want them to do it right away, but I want them to do it at some point, you know? Jey Uso does fit a pretty decent criteria, but it would all of a sudden require the Wyatt Six to be heels, and we just saw them be introduced as baby faces. So if we want to keep them as baby faces, then I think the right choice here is Dominic Mysterio, so I'm going with the majority here. Who do you miss more, the Spanish announce table or Alberto Del Rio? Some of the greatest moments in WWE history have been delivered by the Spanish announce table. I desperately miss the Spanish announce table. Sometimes we get it from time to time at a PLE, but more often than not, we don't. Meanwhile, Alberto Del Rio, I've always just sort of been bored by the guy. He's never really entirely impressed me. I think that a better representation of Latino culture as a Latino is the Spanish announce table, not Alberto Del Rio. So I'm going with the majority here, the Spanish announce table. We need that shit to come back, folks. All right, folks, thank you so much for submitting in your answers. Maybe we'll do another one of these next month, but that's it. I'm done. Get out of here.